Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Ben Whitehair, your SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President. Joining me to host today's presentation is National Board Member and a dear friend of mine, Linda Powell. Hello, Linda. Always such a pleasure to see you.
Hello, Ben. It is always such a pleasure to see you.
Well, back by popular demand, the President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement, the PTEOE, presents for you today tax updates for entertainment performers. This has been a go-to annual presentation, and we are so happy to be able to offer this again for our members across the country. Today's topic, presented in two parts, will cover a wealth, pun intended, of information to help you sort through your 2021 taxes before the filing deadline. We'll cover the four most popular areas people want to know about, updates you should be aware of for your taxes, what you'll need to put together your return, how to handle expenses, and of course, free filing. Some of the resources discussed in today's presentation are available on our SAG-AFTRA website at sagaftra.org/tax-prep. Again, that's sagaftra.org/tax-prep. This is a general resource that we hope is helpful, so please have a look and share with your fellow members. Just a quick reminder that SAG-AFTRA is unable to answer individual questions about your specific tax returns, and those questions should be directed to a professional tax preparer, or you can contact the IRS directly at IRS.gov, or use the old-fashioned telephone, call them at 800-829-1040. Get it? 1040 taxes, tax form 1040. Again, that number 800-829-1040 for information pertaining to your situation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Linda.
Thank you so much, Ben. I am so happy to introduce Sandra, my friend. She's back with us to share her expertise. Sandra's a working actor. She's a member of SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity Association. She's an attorney in private practice in the areas of tax, estates, trusts, contracts, and business law. She's also Secretary-Treasurer of the Actors Equity Association and serves as the tax director of the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program in New York. It's VITA or VITA?
VITA.
VITA. She has been affiliated with VITA as a pro bono preparer and instructor for more than 30 years. Sandra holds licenses in the areas of tax, accounting, securities, investments in law, and is admitted to practice in all New York State courts, as well as the Federal District Court, the United States Tax Court, and the United States Supreme Court. Sandra, I'm just so happy to be here with you today, and I want to thank you for continuing to share your knowledge with us. And I know there's a lot to talk about, so we're going to jump right in. What's new this year? What do members need to be aware of?
Well, thank you very much, Linda, and thank you, Ben. I also want to give a shout out to Bernadine Robbins and Maria Cabezas from the New York office who helped put all of this together for you. This webinar, the slides, and everything else. We couldn't have done it without all their help. And I'm delighted to be back here. This isn't the first time you've seen me do this, but we pay taxes every year. So as long as I'm able, I'm very happy to help weigh in. What's new this year? Well, this year, the filing deadline doesn't look like it's going to be extended, which means it's the middle of April, as it always has been. Now this year, that filing due date is on the 18th. April 18th, 2022 is when your tax returns will have to be filed, or extension forms with any taxes that you owe at the time. Now, most people say, well, how do I know my taxes if I haven't done my tax returns? You have to estimate, go based on last year if you want to, but if you think you're going to owe taxes, that is also due at the same time. You have an extension of time to file the returns, but not to pay the tax. And what's new this year, in addition, you remember those wonderful stimulus checks that people were getting in 2020. Well, in 2021, we got one more, and it's called the economic impact payment, as the others were. And now you already know that the others weren't taxable. Well, neither is this, but you probably know that you had to report those on your tax returns to make sure that you got the right amount. You have to do the same thing this year. So this year's form is the 1444C to report your economic impact payment, which came to you probably somewhere in the first quarter of the year. Most people got $1,400. You probably did too, but if you didn't, it's because of a phase out of income. So go back through your information when you start to compile everything, look for that 1444C to arrive in the mail and let your tax preparer know how much you got. If you didn't get enough, they'll give you some more. If you were overpaid, don't worry about it. They're not going to ask you to pay it back. Another prepayment to everybody, and this one will affect your tax liability, but it's for those people who have children under the age of 17. Many of them got advanced child tax credit payments starting in July of 2021 and going through December of 2021. Most of you who have children already know this. You got $300 in each payment, not to exceed $3,600 for every child under the age of 5, and $3,000 for children between 6 and 17. If you have any questions about that, you should look for a letter that's coming to you. And this is another thing you have to give your tax professional. It's called letter 6419. The 6419 letter tells you all about your advanced child tax credit and how you will have to report it on this year's tax return. Now, you might be asking, well, wait a minute, how does that work? What is this child tax credit? Those of you who have children in the house already know that you get some extra credit for taking care of dependent children. And that comes in the amount of money. It's a tax credit. It lowers your tax liability. And you've enjoyed this in prior years, but you never got it in advance before. This year, because the government wanted to stimulate the economy, and as part of the stimulus packages that have been passed, the child credit was sent to people in an advance form. So the advanced child tax credit was provided to you, and you have to reconcile it on this year's tax return. It won't be difficult if you have the letter 6419. This year, there's something that's not exactly new, but is going to be seen with some regularity now. Those of you who deal in virtual or cryptocurrency already know that you've had to answer yes or no on your tax return as to whether or not you have that currency. You didn't have to do much about it because most of you didn't earn any money that was reportable. Now the government is saying, we're looking for reporting forms on that, like they do on all the other kinds of income that you have. So if you have purchased and sold any kind of cryptocurrency, you're going to have to report the income and or the gains that you have on that. Now it's treated like other investments are treated, like stocks and bonds and other investments that people know of in the stock market. Cryptocurrency is not treated any differently. If you trade it, you have to report whether or not you made money, and if you did, you have to pay tax on that money. So you will continue to answer the question about whether or not you own this currency and report any gains as you do other income. Some kinds you might have heard about are Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Polkadot, Stellar. There's lots of them out there. If you have any questions about this kind of currency, you're going to have to go back to the people who are trading in it, because it is not regulated, and your financial advisor probably isn't going to know too much about it at this point. So do your homework before you get your taxes done.
Fantastic. Yes, Sandra, I'm curious. Our members often ask, okay, what do I actually need to bring? What do I give to my tax preparer? You mentioned a couple things already for specific circumstances. Mm-hmm. What would you say are the key pieces? How do I prepare myself so that I can go in, get done as quickly as I can, and hopefully get the most savings possible?
That's a great question, Ben. And I like to think that at VITA, we have a pretty good one-pager for you. We call it the information checklist. And I think there it is. It's 2 columns. The left-hand side is all the income that you should be looking at. And the right-hand column is all the deductions or expenses that you'll be expected to either qualify for or have to report. So, it's, as I said, this is a one-pager. If you go through this, each column, and you're diligent about saying, yes, I've got this, let's find it. No, I don't, let's move on, and so on, you're going to be in really good shape when you sit down to do your taxes with your preparer. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Left-hand column, income. The first things you should look at are W-2 forms. How do you know if you've gotten all your W-2 forms? I always suggest compare them to your pay stubs. Look at your last pay stub or what you got online from your last employer, from the residuals that you've gotten. You can always check in the residuals vault. You know, you go in and you read them all and who the payers were and so on and what you made. These are good places to look at to think about how many employers and W-2s did I have last year. You know, you might think, well, I only did 3 jobs, but you still might have 10 W-2s. Why? Residuals and maybe something you forgot about that is sending you a W-2 in 2021 for possibly work you did earlier and continued into 2021. So always check that out first. The 1099 forms, they abound. If you have interest, income, dividend income, unemployment compensation, yes, it's taxable federally and in most states. The 1099-S in case you sold your personal residence, 1099 miscellaneous for any royalty income that you might have, and many of you do. The 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation, that's the one that most performing artists see. If they don't have everything else on W-2s, they might be getting things on the 1099 NEC, and that's for your self-employment or your independent contractor income. And those of you who get these every year, you know who you are and you know to expect it. 1099-R for those who are retired or are collecting money from any qualified retirement plan. And those of you who get benefits from the Social Security Administration will get the 1099 SSA. The next section is the new forms that I already mentioned. Let your tax preparer know about these, write down the amounts, and make sure you have the mailings that I told you to expect with you. If you don't have them, go back through your bank statements and you can amass those dollar amounts and give that to your preparer. It's rare, but some people still receive alimony, and if you still do, it's taxable. If you have any prize winnings, jury duty, if you win the lottery, or if you're an election inspector, as a lot of people have been every year, don't forget those earnings have to be reported as miscellaneous income as well. And there's a category here, scholarships, awards, and honoraria. Most of these aren't taxable if they're spent on the qualifying expenses, but when in doubt, check with your preparer, because sometimes you get an honorarium for doing something and it's simply money that you earn. I lecture to a lot of colleges and I get honoraria all the time. It's taxable income for me, so I'm not looking to exclude it. The rest of this left-hand column is bank information. You can read it at your leisure. Let's go over to deductions. Medical expenses are still tax deductible if you qualify to file the itemized deduction Schedule A, as are charitable contributions by cash or check or credit card, or goods donated. If you have mortgage interest and property taxes, you'll have a 1098 form from your lender, and you will be able to include that as itemized deductions. The child independent care costs, many of you have, and you know you'll get a receipt from the daycare or the preschool or whatever it is, wherever you have your children cared for. Some people do it at home and they hire home help for the same purpose. Make sure that you have the tax ID numbers for the people that you pay and report that accordingly. Remember I said alimony was taxable? Well, the person who pays it gets to deduct it. So don't forget that too if it applies to you. We also ask about your retirement deductions because some of you fund your own retirement in addition to the parallel pensions that you might be getting from unions. Some of you have set up individual retirement arrangements, Roth IRAs and the like. So we want to know if you've made those contributions, they can be tax deductible. So don't forget about those. We also ask about rent paid. Many states across the United States give special rent credits for people who are modest to low income. Don't forget to tell your preparer how much rent you paid last year. Your business and automobile expenses we'll go through in a little while, travel expenses as well. If you have expenses related to investment income, keep track of that. College tuition and any kinds of student loan interest that you've paid, keep track of those because they can be valuable deductions as well. This last item here, before we get to the estimated taxes, it says, did you pay your state any amount when you filed your taxes last year? That can be tax deductible. If you had to pay your home state additional tax when you filed, you might be able to deduct that on your tax return. On the other hand, you might not, but we ask you to keep track of it. And then the rest of this is for estimated taxes and extension amounts paid. So if this checklist doesn't work for you, then we've been doing this all wrong. We hope it does. It seems to be a simple checklist for everybody.
Okay, I think that wraps up the slides for this part here. Sandra, that's all super helpful. We have a couple questions. First of all, I am a recovering procrastinator. So for anybody like me who needs maybe a little extra time to file our taxes, what do we do without making sure that we don't create some kind of other problem with the IRS?
Well, the IRS, as I said, gives you until the middle of April this year to get everything pulled together and filed. So I would say, even if you're procrastinating, start to organize now. Even if you don't finish by mid-April, you'd be surprised how much you can get done. You know, if you're getting paperwork in the mail, find a good place to put it so that you put all your stuff in the same place, so it's all organized. You know, the one problem we see most often at VITA is that people say, I just don't know where anything is, and I can't pull it all together. Well, that simple little habit will perhaps correct that problem. And then if you still find yourself really behind the eight ball and you just can't get it together, or you're still waiting for some information to come in from somewhere and you don't have it yet, then you can go on extension and you'll get an extra 6 months to file till the middle of October. But as I previously mentioned, it doesn't give you any extra time to pay your tax. So if you're one of those people who owes tax every year, you're probably going to owe this year too, because it means you either don't have enough withholding on the money that you do make as an employee, or you've got some other kinds of income coming in that has no withholding, like those 1099s, NECs that I mentioned. Maybe you've got some securities and investments. Maybe you're retired and you don't have enough withholding on your pensions. You know, it depends on where your income sources are. And if the withholding is enough, you get a refund. If it's not enough, you have to write a check. So if you're one of those people who has to pay every year, I would say be conservative, send in some money with the extensions. Now, I know I keep saying write a check and send it in. I'm not talking just about snail mail here, although many of you like snail mail. I'm telling you, it's really, really easy to do all of this online, every single bit of it. I have friends and we have members at VITA who, you know, on whatever the deadline is, are up all night just, you know, banging away at their computers and sending in some money and getting those extensions in. And that's good enough as long as it's in by the 18th of April this year. So you can do it online, www.irs.gov. And I can't provide all of the state websites, but they're not difficult to find. In whatever state you live, go online and just put in your state and income tax, and it'll come up with your state's website. Usually it's www.tax.your two-state abbreviation .gov, but some of those vary from state to state. So whatever yours is, look at your state extension as well. And if you owed money to your home state last year, do the same thing you're doing with the federal. Go online, look for the extension. If you owe some money, send it in.
What if you don't have the money? What if you need an extension in terms of trying to pay? What should somebody do if they're in that position?
Send in what you can. Even if you can only send in $100, but you think you might owe 1,000, send in what you can, but get the extension in on time, because the penalty for not filing on time is one that you can avoid really easily by simply mailing in or sending in the extension,
right?
Either online or by snail mail.
Right.
And if you're sending it by snail mail and you're doing it on the deadline, send it certified so you can prove you mailed it. It's a really easy thing to avoid a penalty with that, you know, certification on USPS. But I recommend everybody do it online. It's easy, it's quick. And if you don't have all the money, send in what you can, $50, $25, whatever it is, just so they acknowledge that, okay, you know, Ben Whitehair's getting his, you know, getting something to us at some point. We'll wait to hear from him later, you know. So it's, and many people do it. So don't worry about it. You'll pay when you can. And you can always continue to send money in between April and October.
Great.
Whatever you can. So maybe by October, you'll be almost caught up. And if you owe a little bit of interest, so what? You know, it won't kill you. It's given you the time to be able to organize your income, your records, your budget, and get everything done the way you're supposed to. And then you can breathe easily. And that extension form will give you a lot of breathing room.
I had another question. You went so quick through all the new forms for this year.
I'm sorry.
Could you lay them out again? And what happens if I don't have the form I need? Is that an IRS.gov situation? Or say if someone doesn't get that advanced child credit form that
the advanced child tax credit, the letter, the 6419, you may go online at the IRS.gov website and create your own account, your own personal account to go in and look at your records. Now, this year they're using a third party. It's called ID.me, M-E. And you have to give over personal information. You have to have a picture taken. You know, it might seem a little daunting for people, but this is the first year the IRS is going to use that third party ID.me to handle all personal inquiries that people have about their own tax accounts. And that'll be the way that you do it for all of your tax accounts. If you want to get a transcript from a prior year, whatever you're looking for. So you can find it there that way.
Great.
The other way to do it is to go through your bank account. Look from July to December and see if you got any payments from the US Treasury IRS. And if you did, and they were $300, you'll know that those were your advanced child tax credit payments. You can just add them up with every bank statement and you won't have to go online to ID.me. And you'll have, you'll have the money for your preparer. What's important is that your preparer knows how much you got already. That's the important thing. Great. And the Form 1444C, the stimulus payment, the economic impact payment is really what it's called. That, if you don't get the 1444C in the mail, or if you get it and you thought it was some stupid thing that you don't need to keep and you tossed it already, again, go back through your bank records and see if you got $1,400 or something less than that, perhaps, in the earlier part of the year. I would say January through April of last year. Most people who are of modest income, and we're talking about single people whose incomes are below $75,000, married couples who filed jointly whose incomes are below $150,000, and head of household members who are single people who have a dependent child in the house. Their incomes have to be below $112,600 to qualify for credits. So be looking, if you're one of those people whom I've just described, you should have gotten the $1,400 income economic impact statement. It's even hard to say. And if you have the child in the house, you should have gotten the advanced child tax credit.
Great.
Is that any clearer?
Very clear. It was clear the first time. I just wanted to double check.
Thanks.
So what is the status of the Performing Artist Tax Parity Act, or PATPA, as I've heard it referred to? If it passes, I know it's working its way through legislation. If that passes, what would actually change?
Well, we are certainly hoping, Ben, that it passes this year. This, I think, is maybe our lucky year. We've been going after this for so many years, but we have very strong bipartisan support for this. I'm just, we're all keeping our fingers crossed. And we are hoping that by the time this airs, there will be some more news about this. But if there isn't, members should know that this is something that we're gearing up to do. And if we ask for their engagement on this and to contact their representatives in the House and the Senate to do any kind of phone banking, whatever it is we think we're going to need, join right in, because if this passes the way it's written, and we certainly hope it will, single individuals whose total gross incomes are below $100,000 and married couples who file joint tax return whose gross incomes are below $200,000 will be able to deduct all of their qualifying show business expenses above the line on their tax returns, which will mean that our entertainment professional expenses as employees are going to come back onto the tax return, and we will get the same kind of relief that other Americans enjoyed under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act when we lost our deductions. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we hope it happens very, very soon. I'm so glad you asked, Ben. I'm really excited about this.
Thank you for your work on that. That's major.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, believe me.
Some people were complaining last year because the refunds were taking so long to process. Do you have any insight into how that's going to go this year, or what we can expect?
Yes, and unfortunately, it's not going to get much better. Congress has not restored sufficient funding in any significant way to add staff and resources to the Internal Revenue Service. And for the 2021 filing season that began on January 24th, they're already behind. So I will tell you that they certainly will get to you. You will not be overlooked. Your refund, once you claim it, once you file for it, if you don't see it for a couple of months, even when you e-file and have it directly deposited into your bank account, which about 90% of people did last year, don't despair. It's just taking a long time. What you may do is go online to IRS.gov, and you can type in the box, the search box, "Where's my refund?" And it will take you to a link in which you have to put some personal information in, what your filing status was, what the refund was that you were expecting. You have to know the dollar amount, and they'll verify this, and then they'll tell you where your refund is in processing. So they'll say it's in processing, or it's on its way to you, or it's still in processing, which a lot of people saw last year. You may also do this with your state tax return. Go on your state's website, do the same thing. They should have a Where's My Refund tool to help people find out if their refunds have been processed and if they're being deposited into their bank accounts. So I wish I could tell you it's going to be much better this year, Linda, but I can't. It's probably going to be slow, but slow and steady wins the race, guys. Just have patience.
Well, fingers crossed that it gets to everybody as soon as possible. Question about Coogan accounts. For anybody who doesn't know Coogan accounts, Sandra, maybe you can just give a quick heads up just so people know what we're talking about. Do we pay taxes on those if we have them for our theoretical children?
Right. Theoretical or otherwise. Yes, the Coogan accounts were set up to protect minors so that the people who were their guardians, usually their parents, could have a trust fund for them so that money would not be squandered before the child actor, the child performer, reached the age of majority and could manage those funds for him or herself. Now they're great accounts. They're terrific accounts, and you can get them at the credit unions of any of the performing arts unions. They'll help you set those up if you have a child or any minor that you think wants to get into show business, and you want to help this career, and you also want to protect that income. They are treated, Ben, the way any other interest-bearing account is treated. It's fully taxable, the interest on it, and so you pay tax on that interest as the account accrues. And so just keep an eye out for those 1099 INT forms, for the Coogan accounts as well, and make sure that that income is included with any other taxable income for the minor.
Yeah, Sandra, something else just occurred to me that we're on kids, the advanced child tax credit. What if a family chose not to take that credit? How does that affect when they're filing their return? How does that work?
Doesn't hurt them at all. They will just get the full credit on their tax return when they file 2021. This was just an advance payment of it. It's like taking part of your money ahead of time before you start work, and then when you finish work, you get the rest of it later. That's
right.
Kind of the way the advanced child tax credit is working this year. If you opted out of it, and you could opt out of it, you could elect not to get it to avoid any confusion at tax time, as some people did, then you just file your tax returns as you always did, and the child tax credit is simply calculated in full and without any adjustment for what you've already gotten.
Great. I get it. I'm done with questions. Ben, did you have anything else?
No, I really appreciate, Sandra, all of what you've shared. I'm taking away that I definitely get to make sure I keep organized and get everything filed as quickly as possible so that everything can get submitted early to hopefully increase the chances of getting any kind of return back, or if I owe money, that I have time to plan for that. One of the things that I've done is I'll scan on my phone. There's lots of different apps you can use to scan all my 1099s and W-2s and tax documents and put them all in one place so that I know I've got them all. I'm very good at being organized. Procrastination, I'm still working on.
This has been great, Sandra.
Yeah, it's difficult. I know, because nobody wants to do it. I mean, including me.
I'm throwing a basket at the door until April 14th kind of person.
Yep.
We do what we can.
You're not alone. You're not alone. But, we all get there somehow, and we all finish it somehow. And by the way, if you don't, VITA helps members with prior year tax returns. If you find you've fallen behind for whatever reason, and my heart goes out to people who fall behind, because I know it happens. People get sick, they have family members to take care of, they have other interruptions in their lives that really just derail things like compliance with the IRS. Who needs to worry about that? There are more important things to worry about sometimes. And I agree with you. Don't worry and don't despair. You can get those returns caught up. Believe me, you can. It's possible. And every good tax professional, every good tax preparer, and those of us at VITA, we do back tax returns. We'll go back any number of years for members, and don't you worry about it. You worry about that family member or whatever crisis occurred in your life, or upheaval. Maybe you had to move 3 times, whatever it was. Let your tax professional or your tax preparer worry about getting you caught up. Get your stuff together and hand it over to someone who will take the burden off of you.
Sandra, last thing before Linda closes us out. My understanding on what you were just saying as well is that the IRS has payment plans that can have, relatively low monthly payments. So if somebody finds themselves way behind, I imagine you'd recommend figuring something like that out with their tax preparer rather than just letting it sit where it could get worse and worse.
Absolutely. The worst thing to do with any kind of debt you owe is pretend you don't see it and, walk around like this with your blinders on. Don't be that way. The IRS is no different from any other creditor. If you want to take time to pay, they will give you 6 years to pay back a debt. They'll look at your income, they'll look at your ability to pay, they'll set up a payment plan. And as you said, Ben, often it's very, very low. And if you have some extra money now and then, or a windfall from something, you can throw extra at them. They'll be happy to take it. Your state will also do the same thing. It's important to know that. They want to work with you. Believe me, they do. They're not interested in having you turn over your possessions to them, because what would they do with them? So they really want you to work with them, and they want to work with you. There are some people, Ben, who might qualify for paying no tax. or paying almost no tax. Those are called offers in compromise. So what you do is you contact the IRS and or your home state, because most states participate in this program as well, and you say, things have been really, really difficult. I don't have the wherewithal to pay this back. I won't be able to do it in 6 years either. What do I do? And there's an application. It's rather involved because you have to disclose all of your financial information and some personal information and your budget and everything else. And you'd be surprised what kind of relief there is for people who really don't have the ability to repay. So those of you who feel overly burdened and paralyzed by this, I really, really urge you to contact someone who might be able to help you with an offer in compromise. We've helped people at VITA with them, and amazingly, a lot of people qualify. We've had a few recent ones where we've gotten the amount down to 10% of what was owed.
Wow.
I know you've seen all these things on TV. Don't do that. This is not very, very difficult to do. It's just a little bit time consuming. But get some guidance. And if you need some guidance from the VITA office, we'll be happy to provide it. If you have your own tax accountant or you've used someone in the past, ask for guidance there as well. So, yes.
That's great. That's
good
great.
questions.
Thanks for asking that, Ben. That's great information for us to have. Sandra, this is a great start. I want everybody to know this is only part one. We're going to wrap up this part, and part two will cover expenses and how to free file. Don't miss it. Both parts of this presentation are available at SAG-AFTRA.org/taxprep, along with all of the worksheets found in the presentation. As a reminder, all questions about individual tax returns should be directed to a professional tax preparer. On behalf of the team here at SAG-AFTRA, we just want to thank all of you for watching today, and special thanks to each of you who have been tuning in for all of our President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement presentations. If you haven't already, while you're here, please subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, and then you will get updates on all the great content we're putting up. So thank you, and we'll see you in part two.
Thanks, everybody.
See you soon.